Hi, good evening.
Good evening, teacher.
How are you?
Fine, teacher, I'm fine.
Okay. Did you like the yesterday's class?
Yes, madam.
Did you understand what we
Yes.
discussed yesterday?
Mm.
Okay. Just a second, let me see. Is Neha going to join?
Um,
Yes,
Dora
yes. I got
teacher.
a request. I got a request. I got a request. Yes. Let her join in. So by the meantime, yes, she's here. Hi Neha. Good evening.
Hi, teacher.
How are
Sorry,
you?
teacher.
It's okay. It's okay. It's absolutely okay. Okay, we will start with our today's class. We will first do quick recap of yesterday. A very quick recap of yesterday. Can I ask you some questions? Will you be able to say?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
What do you mean by personality?
Um,
What do you mean by personality? Come on, fast. This is just a short recap which we need to do today. Okay, I would like to clear. Personality is the way we carry ourselves. Personality is the way we carry ourselves. Okay, can you say me what is communication? What is communication?
talking to each other.
Yeah, talking to each other, exchange of information or some ideas is known as communication. Okay, Neha, can you say me what are the two types of communication? What are the two types of communication?
Mm, verbal communication, non-verbal communication.
Very good. Verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Now, verbal communication. It is a communication where we use words or speech to talk to each other. Language plays a very important role in verbal communication. It is the most common method used in our day-to-day life of communication. Now, what is non-verbal communication? Non-verbal communication is the exchange of information, all the ideas using gestures or some facial expressions or eye contact, eye movements, postures, body movements, etc. Basically, non-verbal communication is used for the disabled people or small toddlers or children, elderly people who have some kind of difficulty in hearing or understanding. Okay, now non-verbal communication, as we see, we have to maintain a very correct body posture. When we are having a handshake, it should be very firm handshake. Then our attire should be very much prominent, talking to one another. We should be very much confident when we are talking to the opposite person. And the most important thing, we should always have a smile. We should always have a smile. Now, in the non-verbal communication, as I already told you, gestures, facial expression, physical contact, eye contact, and body posture plays a very important role. Gestures are expression using your head or your hand, basically to convey different signs from your body parts. Now, facial expressions are the expressions that convey your mood or your emotion with the help of your eyes, your mouth, or any particular type of sign language. Eye contact. It is very much necessary to have a good eye contact because it encourages the other communicator to understand properly, the other listener to understand properly. Now, whenever you are avoiding making a eye contact, it can create a big communication gap. Physical contact. As I told yesterday, it happens only and only with the close family members or some close relatives. Wherein one example I gave, suppose we are going to the hospital to see a patient, we will always just wave our hand and we will always just inquire or say, get well soon or how are you? Now, it is not used for everyone. It is a very less expression that we use. Body posture. It is very important to have a good body posture when talking to another person so that it is easy for the other person to understand very well. Now, there are certain patterns in behavior when it regards to communication. There are various patterns which we use in communication. So first is aggressive communication. Second is assertive communication. Third is passive communication. And the fourth is passive aggressive communication. So aggressive communication, as we see, it displays a lack of regard of another person and assumes that the other person is inferior. So this causes lack of communication, miscommunication, mislead, and interruption in the entire communication process. Now we come to assertive communication. Assertive communication is the style or a body language that conveys openness and respectiveness for the opposite person who is a listener. And we have to always maintain a good eye contact. And it is always understood that a assertive communicator gives the other person his or her personal space. Passive communication. Passive communication displays no confidence or very little confidence of the opposite person. Now, a passive communication will always have weakness in behavior. They will not respond properly. A very quiet vocal response will come from the other side and poor eye contact. Now, passive aggressive communication. Passive aggressive communication shows when the person is in anger, is irritated, or is frustrated. Such communication always displays the stubborn and the unconcerned behavior of the opposite person. So it is very much essential that we should communicate to each other properly. Now, questioning skills. Today, we are going to start with questioning skills. What do you mean by a question? Can any one of you answer me? What do you mean by a question? Divya,
Don't know, ma'am.
Neha,
We are asking something, ma'am.
what do you mean by a question? Are you in proper range, my dear? Please be in proper range.
Hmm, I don't know, ma'am.
Okay. Question is the thing what we ask when we are unaware about it. Right? So, asking questions in any sort of communication is a very much valuable tool because by this means you get some or the other answer from the communicator and you gather more information related to a particular topic. Now, there are two types of questions. One are closed questions, one are open questions. Closed questions are the ones in which directly you ask the question, you get an answer, and there and there the matter is sorted. It has ended. Now it requires a very specific answer to that question so that the question gets closed that in there itself. Suppose I am asking you, you are going to a shopkeeper to buy some clothes. A shopkeeper is asking you, have you worn this type of jeans before? You will say either yes, either no, right? Right? You will not just answer, I have to think, maybe. You will not answer this way. You will just say a yes or no. This is a closed question. When you ask a question, you get the answer, the question and the answer session is finished. That is called a closed question. Direct way of answer. Open questions. Now we come to open questions. I'm just pausing in between so that you get time to write also whatever you are noting it down. And I am even now Saturday and Sunday are our classes. So in these 2 days, whatever we are learning, I'm going to send notes in my language. You can refer them and you can understand them in your language. Now we have open questions. Now open questions are the questions that are answered in own way, wherein a sort of open-minded person is asking a question and there is no limit of the answer, wherein the opposite person who is answering is giving a very detailed information regarding that particular question very openly, not being hesitant at all. So this type of question encourages the listener to learn very much eagerly and very much neatly. Now here I can give you an example. You are talking to a teacher. You are not understanding a particular topic and suppose about environment, right? So you just ask your teacher, what is environment? And your teacher is giving you a detailed 5 to 10 minutes explanation on just a word environment. So this type of communication is known as open communication, wherein you are being shared the detailed information of that particular topic. which makes your understanding very wide and easy to adapt. Yes, done with your writing work? Done with your writing work?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now we come to, we have seen questioning skills. In questioning skills, we learn types of questions, two types, closed questions, open questions. Closed questions are direct questions, direct answers. So the answer will always be in one word, either yes or either no. Open questions are the questions in which you get a detailed information about a particular topic so that you get even motivated and more encouraged to listen what is more available, what information is more available. Now we are going to go to the another topic. The topic's name is listening skills. Listening skills. Now, what do you mean by listening? What do you mean by listening? Can you say me? To listen.
We will listen when someone talking, teacher.
Yes, a very important part of communication is listening. You have to be a very good listener. I repeat, you have to be a very good listener because because the more you listen, the more information you are collecting and gathering in your mind, which is valuable at any point of time. Now, when we come to listening skills, what are these listening skills? Now, listening skills is to perceive the voice, analyze, and interpret correctly. You should perceive the voice. You should understand the voice of the communicator, what he or she is trying to say. You should analyze in your mind what you have just listened. In your mind, there should be a connection. You should analyze it very well. And the very important thing, the thing which you have perceived the voice of a communicator, analyze it, And when you are communicating to a listener, now understand this, huh? When you are communicating to a listener, you have to interpret it very much correctly. Here, you play the role of the second person, the middle person who will say to the third person. So you have to interpret in your mind very correctly what you are listening, what you have analyzed. If not, your mind is allowing to analyze. Remember the questioning skills. Remember the questioning skills. In that, remember the open question skill. Open question skill to ask more, to understand more. But when you remember the questioning skill in between the listening skill, do not try to interrupt the person immediately. Do not try to interrupt the person immediately. And a very effective listening skill involves analyzing sounds. Suppose I am saying you something, you are replying yes, I understand, I got it. This is an analyzing sound that you are giving to me, and I am understanding as a communicator that you are getting my points. You are listening it thoroughly. So it is very important to analyze, to give the analyzing sound. Just a second, hold on. Yes. So what we were discussing, effective listening skill involves analyzing sounds, organizing and interpreting them to a meaningful understanding. Organizing and interpreting them to a wonderful understanding. Now, the people who are listening by focusing on what the speaker is speaking improves the perception level as well as the understanding. The people who are listening by focusing on what the speaker is saying improves the perception level as well as the understanding. So it is very much important to become a good listener. It is very much important to become a good listener. I'm giving a pause. for you to write the points what you have understood. Now we come to effective listening skill. Effective listening skills. Effective listening skills are used to recognize and prevent barriers in listening. To recognize and prevent barriers to listening. Secondly, to develop listening behaviors. To develop listening behaviors. Now, what do we mean by to recognize and prevent barriers to listening? To recognize and prevent barriers to listening. Now, barriers include noise, frequent interruptions, message overload, disability, anxiety, attitude, impatientness of the listener. Barriers include noise, frequent interruption, message overload, disability, anxiety, attitude, and impatientness of the listener. Just a second. Now, such barriers interrupts listening. When we see there is a continuous noise, there are frequent interruptions, there is a message overload. Suppose someone is just saying without explanation. That is a message overload. Disability to understand, anxiety, attitude, and impatientness that interrupts listening. So, such barriers should always be avoided. Such barriers should always be avoided. So, we should always recognize and prevent these kind of barriers while listening. We should always recognize and prevent these kind of barriers. Now, to develop listening behavior, to develop listening behaviors. Now, listening behaviors. How can you develop good listening behaviors? By improving your attention towards the listener. By improving your attention towards the listener. Focusing on what the listener is trying to convey you. Focusing on what the listener is trying to convey you. Being very patient while listening. Being very patient while listening. participating in listening, participating in listening, giving a good feedback or a response, giving a good feedback or a response. Good listening behaviors improves the communication skills. Good listening behaviors improves the communication skills and make the communication effective and make the communication effective. So to develop good listening behaviors are by improving the attention towards the listener, by improving the attention towards the listener, by focusing on what the communicator is trying to convey, by focusing on what the communicator is trying to convey, by being patient and understanding the concept of the communicator, by being patient and understanding the concept of the communicator, participating in the communication, participating in the communication, giving appropriate feedback and response to the communicator, giving appropriate response and a feedback to the communicator. This helps effective and healthy communication skills. This helps effective and healthy communication skills. I'm just pausing for you to write. Neha and Divya, are you understanding what I am trying to convey you by this topic?
Yes, teacher.
Very good. So, barriers of communication. Now we will come to barriers of communication. There are certain barriers in the communication through which there is a failure or disturbance to the entire communication process. Now, these barriers are physical barrier, physical barrier, psychological barrier, psychological barrier, personal barrier, personal barrier, administrative barrier, administrative barrier, and time barriers, and time barriers. Now, out of these, 5 type of barriers, we are right now going to focus on only 3 type of barriers. On only 3 type of barriers. One is physical barriers, second is personal barrier, third is time barrier. One is physical barrier, second is personal barrier, third is time barrier. So as of now, to our communication process, we are going to focus in these type of barriers. Now, barriers in communication due to any sort of physical factors such as noise, time, space, place, or any type of medium are known as physical barriers. Barriers due to any type of noise, time, space, place, or any sort of medium can hurdle in physical barrier of communication, which will lead to the blockage or disturbance of the entire communication process, which will lead to the blockage or disturbance in entire communication process. Now suppose I am talking to you and on my side there is a continuous noise going on, there is a continuous hurdle going on, and you are not going to hear properly. So this will either disturb your understanding, either give a huge blockage in the middle of understanding. Same goes with time barriers. Whenever there is a sort of time limit and I am extending the time limit, creates a hurdle and impatientness to the listener. Time barriers are such whenever there is a time limit and I am extending the time limit, creates the impatientness to the listener. Personal barriers. Now, in the type of personal barriers, there can be the cultural differences which can cause discomfort for the entire communication process. Personal barriers affect the cultural differences which can cause discomfort during the entire communication process. So there are 5 of the barriers to communication, which are physical barriers, personal barriers, psychological barriers, administrative barriers, and time barriers. Out of which, right now, we have learned physical barriers, personal barrier, and time barrier. Now, there will be a topic goal setting. In that, we are going to cover again these 5 type of barriers. So these 5 type of barriers will be studied when we will be doing the topic goal setting. Now again, and a very important method of communication is confidential. Confidential. Now, as you are not so young that you are going to school or college, you are growing big, you will be applying for the jobs. You will be going to work somewhere. So the meaning of confidential, first of all, I want you to make clear whenever you are going to work, to step out to work, and such informations which are not supposed to be get open to public, the information which is not supposed to be get open to public is known as confidential, is known as confidential. The information which is not supposed to be open to public is known as confidential. So confidential communication plays a very important role when there is some sort of type of agreement, a promise to keep the information confidential, or a conversation secret. It is a type of agreement or a promise to keep that information or conversation secret. It is a type of bond which we share among the people whom in which only the communicator and the listener are being addressed, not the third person, not the public. This is the right of individual. Confidential communication is the right of individual. It depends on what context are you speaking, what particular point should be confidential among them, in which the communication it not is not supposed to be revealed to any sort of public or any sort of third person. I'm giving a pause for you to write. So today we are at the end of the communication skills. I'm just giving a quick recap of what we have done up till now. First, we started with the questioning skills. Questioning skills, we have done two type of questions. One is closed question, one is open question. Closed question is the question type of question where we get a direct answer. So by the direct answer, I mean to say is either yes or a no. Open questions. Open questions are there when there is an open-minded person listening and asking every detail of the particular question. Second, we came to the listening skills. Listening skills. Listening skills is to perceive the voice, analyze and interpret correctly to others. Effective listening skills involves analyzing sounds, organizing and interpreting them to a meaningful understanding. Proper listening by focusing on what the speaker speaks improves the perception as well as understanding. Effective listening skills is used to recognize and prevent barriers in listening and to develop good listening behavior. By recognizing and preventing barriers in listening here means barriers that includes noise, frequent interruptions, message overload, disability, anxiety, attitude, and impatientness of the opposite person. Such barriers interrupts in listening. So these barriers should always be avoided. To develop good listening behaviors, we mean to improve the attention, focusing on what the communicator is trying to convey, being a patient listener, participating and giving a appropriate feedback and a good response. Good listening behaviors improves the communication skills and makes a very effective conversation. Now, there are barriers in communication. We came across to 5 barriers: physical barriers, psychological barrier, personal barrier, administrative barrier, and time barrier. Physical barrier, psychological barrier, personal barrier, administrative barrier, and time barrier, wherein we have learned 3 types of barrier: personal barrier, phys- physical barrier, and time barrier. Personal barrier, physical barrier, and time barrier. Time barrier is you should give appropriate time to the communicator. You should not expand your given time limit so that the other person will not get impatient. Personal barrier is creating a cultural difference to the listener, which creates discomfort to the entire communication process. Physical barrier leads barriers in communication due to physical factors like noise, time, space, place, or any sort of medium. The last and the very important, confidential communication. Confidential communication is a type of communication in which there is a type of agreement or a promise to be kept or a conversation secret. A type of communication where there is a promise to be kept or an agreement or a conversation secret. This is a right to every individual. This is a right to every individual, and the listener should be very well respecting the confidential communication so that it will never lead to interruption, miscommunication, and any sort of professional dis- disagreement. So here we end today with the topic communication skills. I would be sending you my write up for the same in the coming week so that you can go through it. Also, you can please subscribe my YouTube channel and keep so that you will be getting the recording of each and every session what we are doing so that it is easy for you to refer anytime you need. Okay? Is the today's topic clear to you?
Yes,
Any
ma'am.
kind of doubt you are having, you can ask. Any doubt you are having, you can ask me. Any particular thing that you have not understood. Okay. So I treat that there are no questions from your side. That means today's topic is well understood to you. So it was nice having this communication skill lecture with you today. We will meet coming week next Saturday with our session and public public communication, public speaking is there in coming week. So you'll be attending the same, right? It is there in, I suppose, on Tuesday and Thursday. Okay. So we'll meet next weekend for a personality development lecture. Bye. Good night.
Good night, ma'am. Bye.
Good
Bye.
night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.